This is a production of Cornell University.
Good morning, Dr. Maas.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly. How are you?
Good.
Or good afternoon, I'm sorry.
So I'm going to start. Okay, everybody, this is the first event of AMSA. So I'm going to describe it a bit. AMSA is the American Medical Student Association. Its mission statement is to promote active improvement in medical education, involving its members in the social, moral, and ethical obligations of the profession of medicine, assisting the improvement and understanding of world health problems. Our first event is going to start with Dr. Maas's lecture about sleep. Little side information about Dr. Maas. He's the author of New York Times bestseller Power Sleep. He's a recipient of the American Psychological Association's Distinguished Teaching Award, and he's a recipient of 42 major film festivals awards. And he's here today to give us a lecture about sleep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is just extremely exciting. It's a monumental event for Cornell University because this is the first occasion where Cornell Ithaca has been connected live, simultaneous, two-way to our medical college in Doha, Qatar. So I am so honored and so pleased that the Qatar students have asked me to be part of their program. They have joined the American Medical Students Association as a very remote chapter, 7,000 miles away, and this is their first event. They're having a wellness week, and they've asked me to give a little talk on sleep. And I don't know, I haven't asked our technicians here, whether you in Doha can see our class. Is it possible to get a shot of the Cornell class? We're kind of in the dark here. There's probably close to 600 or 700 people here right now. And I don't know if they can put that up on the screen. Is that technically impossible? Maybe. I'll check. Can we do it? Can we get a picture the other way? Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. You are on camera right now in Qatar. They can't put it up for... There you go. Amazing technology. This works. Okay, what I want to do, and I will do this within the hour because I know everybody else has, at least on the Ithaca side, everybody has exams. This is study week, a lot of papers due, a lot of problems, so we will not take an inordinate amount of time. And for those of you who have taken Psych 101 here or there or are taking, this will be very much a review, but it's something that you should not only have for the final exam, it is something you should have for the rest of your life. So maybe a review is in order. So let me just start and we'll do a little comparison. This has never been done, an international comparison simultaneously. I want to know how much sleep you're averaging on a school night. So let's start. How many people right now are just getting 5? Could you raise your hands? 6. 7. And 8. All right, there's about 3 people in each situation who are getting adequate sleep, and hopefully we'll try to do something about that. Well, most people are moderately to severely sleep deprived, not just a little bit, but so much that it is really affecting your life. Certainly it's affecting your academic life. It might be affecting your social life, and for sure, if you're an athlete, it is affecting your athletic performance. In the United States, 71% of Americans are not meeting the requirement for a healthy night's sleep. We don't have the data in Qatar yet, and a few of the medical students are telling me they would like to begin to assemble that data, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens cross-culturally. For years, we've assumed that people were sleeping 7 hours because that's what they told us, but A summer ago, University of Chicago experimenters put ActiWatches on the wrist of over 100 subjects, and all of these people were saying they slept 7 hours, and it turns out if you put these accelerometers on their wrist and you can tell whether they're awake or asleep, even though they're claiming 7 hours, they're sleeping close to 6 or 6.1. So they're so tired they don't even know how much or how little sleep they're getting. High school and college students, as most of you know, are walking zombies. You guys need 9.25 hours of sleep every single night to be fully alert all day long. If you don't get that, you're not using your potential, and you're not feeding the brain the nutrients that it needs. And in America, and I think Doha is very close to this from the surveys we've done with Psych 101 in Doha, you're averaging about 6.1 hours, just the same as the general public. So some of you have seen this clip before, but if you haven't, here's my favorite clip of a middle school student whose dad is a local famous politician with enough power to ask the President of the United States to come to his city and give a speech at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So this young man, because his dad is such a powerful politician, gets to stand on the podium next to the President of the United States. And what a thrilling event for any of us, regardless of our political leanings or anything like that. But to be up on the podium next to the President is a pretty hefty thing. And here's basically what happened.
We need to maintain spending discipline in our nation's capital. I have a plan to protect small business owners and employees from... I actually did vote for the $87 billion with all your heart. State House members, all the local officials, the High Sheriff is with us today. You're worried about the quality of the education and the community in which you live. We stand for the fair treatment of faith-based groups who receive federal support for their work. This will not happen on my watch.
That's the situation.
On a typical school night, I probably get about 5 or 6 hours of sleep. 6, 5?
3.
It's impossible to get to bed at a reasonable hour. I don't know what a good night of sleep is.
I've just been totally sluggish.
I'm always napping.
Tired most of the day.
I'm exhausted.
Totally exhausted.
I'm so exhausted.
All I want to do is sleep.
All of my high school has been sort of spent in a sleep-deprived haze.
So that's a film clip from a film that we did with Ithaca High School students. So it's certainly rampant at places like Ithaca High School, although after doing the film, the public became, and the teachers and the students became very much aware of the problem. And last year, the school board voted to shift the starting time at Ithaca High School, so they are now starting about an hour and a half later than they originally did. And I think what they're going to find out is mood is going to be better, academic performance is going to be better, drug use is going to be down, accidents are going to be down, and satisfaction with the entire school experience is going to be significantly up, as it's been in other locations around the states that have done that. There are prep schools now that are changing their starting times, and I think it is so important to be aware that this is a major problem. School superintendents say, well, we're going to teach math and physics and all the tough courses at 8 or 9 in the morning when the students first get here, because that's when they're most alert. And that is exactly when they're most sleepy. So even the principals and the superintendents are basically ignorant of the biological clock. And we'll talk a little bit more about that very, very shortly. And it even is going down to kindergarten and first grade. Kids are falling asleep on the school bus because their parents are not putting the kids to sleep. They're often single parent homes, or they're two career families, and they think, well, by the time I get home, I have to do the shopping. I don't have a babysitter. I'll have to take the child with me. We'll go to the mall. I want to spend quality time with the kids. All sorts of things that mitigate against these children getting enough sleep. And we have to do something about it. 75% of us experience sleep problems at least a few nights a week. You can't get to sleep, or you can't maintain sleep, or you wake up too early, or some combination of all three. And we've got to do something about that. Last year, 42 million prescriptions were written for sleeping pills, and that's a 60% increase over the year 2001. And as my students know here, the world's greatest cure for insomnia these days is to read Power Sleep. Any 2 pages, you've told me, will put you right out, so feel free to read that. I am so proud of that book, not because it's been a bestseller or anything like that, but because of these 4 names on the bottom of the front cover. Those are 4 undergraduates, and I think one of the nice things about a Cornell education is you can work with professors and get publications even before you graduate as undergraduates. So take advantage of that. Knock on professors' doors, say, I want to work with you, and marvelous, marvelous things can happen. All 4 of these co-authors are doing incredible things, both in industry and corporate work and in medicine right now. And it's because they bothered to knock on a door and say, I want to take advantage of what Cornell has to offer. For the vast majority of people, sleepiness diminishes your concentration at work, the amount of work you can accomplish, and the quality of your work. Sleep deprivation in industry alone last year cost in excess of $66 billion in terms of loss of productivity, illness, accidents, and even life itself. The Harvard Business Review, which is very, very particular about what it publishes, published an article not too long ago. Its lead article was on sleep and productivity in industry. And what that article said is top executives have a critical responsibility to take sleep seriously. Educational programs, much like we're doing right now this morning, about sleep should be mandatory for corporations. If you want to raise performance, you need to pay attention to this fundamental biological process. Encouraging a culture of sleepless machismo is worse than nonsensical. It is downright dangerous and the antithesis of intelligent management. I don't know how many times every year I get calls from former Cornell students who are working on Wall Street, at Goldman Sachs, at Lehman Brothers, all these great firms, and they are absolutely exhausted. They say, hey, Prof, they're expecting me to work 6 out of 7 days. I'm supposed to be here at 9 in the morning. I can't leave till 1 in the morning, or I'm not going to make it through this initial trial period of a year or 2. Everybody is trying to outdo everybody else, and nobody can even stand up. We don't even know what we're looking at. And these companies are paying huge salaries to these people who cannot function. And it's time that these corporations are aware of the fact that it's wasted money. Well, if you learn nothing else, I want you to know, obviously, that sleep is a necessity. It's not a luxury. It is the quantity and quality of your sleep that in large measure is going to determine your success in your waking life. The first thing it affects is mood. Even if you're a little deprived, you're irritable, you're anxious, you're uptight, you're depressed, and as we'll see in a moment, you can gain weight. And certainly it affects your alertness, your energy, your thinking, your performance, your productivity, your safety, your general health, and how long you're going to live. The best predictor of lifespan is not nutrition, although it's important. It's not exercise, although it's important. It's the quality and quantity of your sleep. It's that simple, and we have a meta-analysis of hundreds of studies that show that, including something that was released just this week that we've known about for a while, but finally we had the courage to say that sleep is a probable cause of something that is incredibly life-threatening, and I'll talk about that very soon in just a few moments. The sleeping brain is more active than it ever is during the day. It regulates your immune, your hormone, and your endocrine functions, which are essential for your general health. 2 quick studies, University of Chicago, University of Pittsburgh. Young subjects, 18 to 26-year-olds, otherwise completely healthy, were asked to, for 6 nights in a row, sleep only 6 hours, which is what the average of what the Cornell student gets. And at the end of those 6 nights, every student had a medical profile exactly undistinguishable from a senior citizen of 72 years old. What happened? High cortisol levels, that's your stress hormone. high blood sugar levels, and lowered leptin molecules. What's leptin? A brain hormone that tells whether you've had enough to eat. And even if you've pigged out over the last 2 weeks, if you're only sleeping 6 hours or less, your leptin levels have dropped, and when you wake up, you're going to be starving. You're going to be starving for sugars, for junk food, for carbos, and you're going to gain weight. So if you continue to sleep only 6 hours a night, that's going to lead to hypertension, heart attacks and strokes, type 2 diabetes, periodontal disease, and obesity. The best diet there is not South Beach, it's not Atkins, it's staying in bed asleep. If you stay in bed 1 extra hour, you're going to start shedding a pound or 2 a week effortlessly. It's a great diet. So here's the data from Columbia, replicated at Stanford and at Johns Hopkins. 6-hour sleepers, 23% more likely to be obese than 7 to 9. And it's not only correlational data, it is causal data as well. New finding of a couple of weeks ago, third graders who sleep less than 9 hours a night have a 40% chance of being obese by the time they're in 6th grade. Wow. Jan Born, University of Lübeck in Germany, found that people who sleep 6 hours or less have lowered their resistance to viral infection by 50% over those getting normal sleep. So when you get a cold or a flu, and boy, we see it when we give exams in this room, everybody is coughing and hacking. And it's because, obviously, as you're going into exam periods or study periods, you're not getting adequate sleep, you're lowering your resistance, you're getting sick, and you're not going to be able to perform as well. Blind women have 50% less breast cancer than sighted women because sighted women tend to stay in the light too long. If you don't turn off the light, melatonin doesn't get secreted in your brain to put you to sleep. So if you stay up a long time, melatonin is suppressed. And when you suppress melatonin, estrogen levels skyrocket. And the correlate of skyrocketing estrogen levels is breast cancer. Let me go to this. Released about 3 days ago, we now are definitively stating that shift work is a probable cause, the graveyard shift in particular, a probable cause of cancer. That is really threatening. Night workers have a 35% greater risk of colorectal cancer, males and females. Prostate cancer is rampant among shift workers. And why is that? Because of lowered melatonin levels, because these people don't spend enough time in the dark. Daytime sleep is never as adequate as nighttime sleep. You got doctor's appointments, you want to play golf, you want to go to Little League with your kids, so you're working all night and you're up half the day as well. And what happens with that sleep deprivation is not only lowered melatonin levels, but you're much more vulnerable in terms of your immune system due to sleep deprivation. And when your immune system shuts down, as you know from the module on stress in the Myers textbook, what's going to happen there is a likelihood of cancer cells developing. The sleeping brain is much more active than the awake brain. It replenishes brain neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that build new neural networks of memories, putting memory into long-term physical storage by building at the synapse between your neurons lots of connections, forming these memory traces, which are essential for memory, for learning, for performance, for problem solving, for creativity, and for athletic excellence. If you counted at the rate of 1 per second every connection in your brain, it would take you 32 million years to finish that task. So the greatest supercomputer is not something over in some big electrical engineering or physics or computer science building. It's the computer between your ears. That 8 inches has the most powerful mechanism for memory in existence. And the problem is you're not using that capacity anywhere near your potential simply because, and I'm going to show you the research in a moment, you're not getting enough sleep. So what's happening is everything comes into the hippocampus, all information, whether it's learning a golf swing or whether it's memorizing things for a law course or what have you. It all starts there, and it only stays there maybe 24 hours, and if it's not used in some way or transferred to higher centers in the brain, it's basically lost. So it's sleep, and adequate sleep, I might stress, that transfers information from the hippocampus up into the cerebral cortex, where it forms these networks of ideas called memory traces, predominantly associations in the prefrontal cortex and also memories that reside in the temporal lobe. And the problem is we don't sleep enough for this to occur. Since 1879, we have been blissfully ignorant of the need for sleep. We were sleeping before Edison turned on the electric light, 10 hours. Then it went to 9, then to 8, then to 7, now it's 6, and it's headed southward, and we've got to put a stop to that rampant deprivation. The sleeping brain is much more active than the waking brain. Wakefulness has one brain wave, low voltage, fast beta waves, and when you get into a good night's sleep, you have to go through 5 different other types of brain waves. You have to have all 5 every single night to be cognitively proficient, athletically excellent, and to be in good health. The deepest sleep of the night is delta sleep, marked by delta waves in stage 4. They're very high amplitude and they're very slow cycle per second. Every once in a while during the night, the brain becomes alive, as it were, like wakefulness, and we have waves called REM waves, or rapid eye movement sleep, the period in which most dreams occur. Very important for dreaming, but also important for cognition. And these waves are almost identical to the waking state, but they're not quite the same. You're not awake and you're not asleep. You're in a third psychological and physiological state called REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. Let me just point out in stage 2, which is predominant between the 6th and the 8th hour of the night, in the last quartile of an 8-hour night, we have such things called sleep spindles that sound like this. We have known of the spindles since 1952, but we didn't know until just a few years ago what they were for. And they are the key to your golf swing, to your tennis game, to your musical ability. Anything that might require hand-eye or hand-foot coordination absolutely needs those sleep spindles, and about 95% of you in this room and over in Doha are not getting any spindles any night. And so if you want to be a much better athlete, what you're going to have to do is put the back into your sleep, and I'll show you how very shortly. This is the architecture of a healthy night's sleep. If you say, the minute my head hits the pillow, I'm out, or the minute they close the door to the airplane cabin before we go on the taxiway, I'm out, I'm a great sleeper, you're fooling yourself, because that's a sign of sleep deprivation. The well-rested person takes 20 minutes to go to sleep. So if you go to sleep instantly, be aware that that's a signal that you are seriously sleep deprived. Within 20 minutes or so of sleep onset, you'll be in the deepest sleep of the night, stage 4 sleep, unless you're a senior citizen or a type A personality. You'll stay there about an hour, and 90 minutes after sleep onset, just like clockwork, because it's driven by your biological clock, you'll hit your first REM period of the night, about 9 minutes in length, and every 90 minutes thereafter, you'll go back into REM, REM being twice as long with each successive period. You have to play every note in the symphony of the night for you to be at your peak for performance. And most of you are truncating that by sleeping only 6 hours right there, so you are not getting a healthy night's sleep. And you're going to have to do something about that if you want to be a peak performer. I don't have time this morning to go over disorders, but let me just say that 40 million people in America, we don't have any data in Qatar whatsoever, are disturbed by one or more of the 89 differentially diagnosable sleep disorders. The most salient of all of those disorders is insomnia, and the most prevalent sleep disorder beside insomnia, the one that's life-threatening, is sleep apnea. And you all are familiar, I know, with the symptoms of sleep apnea, but the main symptom is heavy snoring with repetitive pauses in breathing. And we do have some symptomatic relief of that with CPAP machines that put continuous positive airway pressure through your nasal cavity and allow you to breathe all night long without waking up 600 or 700 times in microseconds to resume breathing. But let's talk about you, the person without typically a major sleep disorder. Certainly senior citizens are not in very good shape. You give them a TV program, a newspaper, magazine, a book after lunch, and they're out. They call it the post-lunch syndrome, but it happens even if you don't eat lunch because these people are not having adequate sleep at night. Moms and dads of newborns are losing up to 700 hours of sleep the first year of that newborn's life because they know nothing about getting their babies to sleep or how much extra sleep they're needing, including power naps if they're the primary caregiver. And if you're an executive or a politician, you know that you need sleep, especially if you're a senior citizen like President Reagan was during his administration. And my favorite example of that is his having the first economic worldwide summit where he got the presidents of all nations that had atomic weaponry together for a one-day conference in Rome to look at this vexatious problem that became the progenitor of strategic arms limitation treaties. And at that meeting, everybody, unfortunately, was jet-lagged. They had been to a banquet the night before, and at this important meeting, everybody was having trouble staying awake. The meeting was held in simultaneous translation,
to prepare proposal.
and Reagan is not only sleeping, but he's snoring loudly. James Baker, his secretary, hears him and pretends not to notice. No one can stay awake. The Pope is in attendance. The Pope is not praying. He's snoring loudly. He's going into REM sleep. He's lost muscle tonus in his neck. He's having a quick dream, as is Caspar Weinberg. Reagan wakes up for a minute, then goes back to sleep.
No matter who you are, when you got a doze, you got a doze. Take a look at President Clinton. He brags about needing only 5 hours a night. Well, maybe he needs a little more. Here, he's fighting to stay awake. This is former Secretary of State Warren Christopher, checking for lid leaks. And call this a TKO. Health and Human Services Secretary Donna Shalala out cold on the dais with the First Lady and Tipper Gore.
And I asked him to give us an update on the validity of that argument. Hello, Bob. Get those eyes open now. Yeah.
He fell asleep before the interview while waiting for technical problems to be fixed.
Hello, Bob. Your title, just get those eyes open now.
That's right. I'm wide awake here, Paul, focusing on you.
Who said the following? Every important mistake I made in my life, I made because I was too tired. In his autobiography, William Jefferson Clinton said that. And about a month ago on television, as he was promoting his new book, this is the remark he made about politics.
You have no idea how many Republican and Democratic members of the House and Senate are chronically sleep deprived, and I think it makes them more edgy. I think it makes them more irritable. I think it makes them more vulnerable to being pulled back and forth by interest groups that want more conflict and less cooperation. I know that this is an unusual theory, but I do believe sleep deprivation has a lot to do with some of the edginess of Washington today.
President Bill Clinton's prescription for 21st century America, giving through charity, and I believe, if I may say, and I'm paraphrasing here, naps.
And both will make you happy.
And both will make you happy.
How do we test for sleepiness or alertness? The multiple sleep latency tests, the MSLT, developed by Dement and others at Stanford, consist of a test where every 2 hours throughout the day, starting at 8 in the morning, You take a 20-minute test. You're given a quiet, dark, cool bedroom. You're wired so we can tell that you actually fall asleep. You can't fake this test. And you're told go to sleep as quickly as you can. If you fall asleep, we wake you up right away. We say you were sleepy. Come back in 2 hours and try again. If you do not fall asleep, we say you weren't very sleepy, but in 2 hours, come back and try again. And you do this all throughout the day. Who is the most alert segment of our population? They are our prepubescent 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. They're entirely alert, and you and I could be just like that if we got adequate sleep. Our definition, our benchmark for pathological sleepiness is the untreated sleep apneic or narcoleptic. They are asleep on these trials within 3 to 5 minutes on every single trial, even if they've spent 10 hours in bed the night before. Senior citizens have a huge midday dip between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, as do Fortune 500 executives. Where are our high school and college and now our middle school kids? They are identical in terms of their MSLT to the untreated apneic and narcoleptic, and we have to do something about that. So let's give you, without coming to a sleep lab, a quick test here that correlates with the data from the sleep lab. Let's see by a show of hands. Does a heavy meal, a low dose of alcohol, warm room, boring meeting or lecture like this one ever make you drowsy? Raise your hands. Okay, look around you. The only people right now that don't raise their hands are people who are sleeping right now. Do you fall asleep instantly at night? Do you need an alarm clock to wake up? Do you repeatedly hit the snooze button? Do you sleep extra hours on the weekends? Answer yes to any 2 or more of those questions and consider yourself pathologically sleepy. And you've got to do something about that. How'd you like a student who is drunk in class every time they come to class? You've got plenty of them, and it's not alcohol. People who go 2 weeks in a row of 6 hours per night sleep are worse off in terms of their alertness than somebody who is legally drunk. Harvard Business Review calls this presenteeism. You're in class or you're at work, you're not absent, but you're really not cognitively present, and it extracts a huge in business economic toll, in the classroom a huge performance toll. Former student of mine, former Psych 101 TA, is Associate Dean of the Medical School at Stanford, and she's head of the Emergency Medicine Department at Stanford Hospital. She just published a story showing the typical medical resident is more impaired than somebody who has had 3 to 4 martinis within the last hour. Think about that. And some of you who are studying hours and hours and hours on end and spending 16, 17, 18 hours studying, your productivity is about the same as a medical resident. It's almost wasted effort to stay up that long and not get adequate sleep. You're much better off getting some sleep. How many times have you driven home after driving for 20 minutes on a Friday or Saturday night, and you put the car in the garage and you say, oh my gosh, I don't remember a single stop sign, I don't remember a single turn off the highway? You've been microsleeping with your eyes wide open and your brain asleep with up to 90 seconds at a time. I mean, you are on automatic behavior. You're lucky to have gotten the car home without getting into an accident. And listen to this very, very carefully. It's not such an issue over in Doha because of religious beliefs on the use or not using alcohol, but 1 drink on 6 hours of sleep, which is what most of you are getting, in terms of your ability to drive a car, is the same thing as 6 drinks on 8 hours of sleep. So be very careful. Never get into a car with anyone who's the least bit tired, who has had any alcohol at all. It's an accident waiting to happen. 80,000 Americans fall asleep at the wheel every single day. So you might think you're a careful driver, but watch out for the next guy who might be asleep. Drowsiness when you're behind the wheel of a car is red alert. It's almost too late. If you feel your eyelids getting heavy, get off the road and take a 10-minute power nap in a safe area. At best, you'll have another 30 minutes of alertness in driving. Drowsy driving has the same results as drunk driving. No loud radio, no air conditioning, no coffee, no food will prevent you from falling asleep at the wheel if you are in arrears in your sleep debt bank account. The drive cam is a little video camera that we place in corporate trucks, vans, and we monitor all the driving that driver does. It wasn't 1 month after the researchers placed the first video cam in a corporate minivan that the driver at 2 o'clock in the afternoon has just a little microsleep, just a little yawn, just a little closing of the eyes. He's going 55 miles an hour. The car in front of him brakes very quickly to avoid a dog in the road, and watch what happens. He's not even wearing a seatbelt. No seatbelt. He just closes his eyes for a second, opens them up again, and now it's too late. So the next time you feel a little tired behind the wheel, I want that visual image indelible on your brain so you can remember, get off the road now before something bad happens. What are the 4 golden rules? Number 1, for peak performance, determine your sleep need and meet it every single night. It's hardwired. It's not adaptable. Sure, you can condition yourself to wake up after 5 or 6 hours, but that doesn't mean you just need 5 or 6 hours of sleep. As I've said before, people your age need 9.25 hours of sleep to be fully alert all day long. At least 20% of Americans in high school fall asleep in the class several times a week. And the data from Doha was that the average medical student or pre-medical student is falling asleep 5 times minimum a week in class. The internal bedtime for a teenage brain to fall asleep is 3 a.m. and the internal bedtime, the internal time to wake up is 11 a.m. And yet we're trying to tell people they need to be in school at 7 in the morning. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Adults need between 7.5 and 8.5 hours of sleep. If both of your parents are short sleepers and fully alert all day long, you might be one of the lucky few who can do well on 5 hours of sleep. But the percent of people who do well on 5 hours or less, rounded to the nearest whole number, is 0. The problem is almost everybody in this room and over in Doha is not getting that last hour of REM sleep. You say, I don't remember my dreams anyway. Who needs it? Well, here's the what the heck. I've mentioned some of these before. Increased heart rate, diabetes, obesity, unintended sleep seizures, irritability, anxiety, depression, weight gain. You lose your sense of humor. You don't socialize very well. Your motor skills fall apart on the athletic field. And look what happens in the classroom. Reduced ability to process, to concentrate, to remember. You don't speak well. You don't write as well. You think you're writing great term papers and reports, and you're staying up all night, round the clock to do it, and it's rubbish. You are not a good judge of how good or bad that paper is while you're sleep deprived. Take a look at it 2 or 3 weeks later, and you'll say, did I really write that gibberish? Or that wasn't very clear thinking. You can't multitask when you're sleep deprived. You can do single things, kind of automatically, but you can't multitask. And you take risk and you make poor decisions. In some, reduce health and reduce performance. If you want to be a millionaire, you better get some sleep, as was shown on So You Want to Be a Millionaire a couple of weeks ago. Could we boost the sound on that?
Last night, you didn't get here till 3 in the morning, and you haven't slept a wink, huh?
No, I pretty much have coffee flowing through my veins right now.
Do you really? But as a college student, I'm thinking maybe that's not so rare.
Yeah, I'm up pretty late, mostly. I'm kind of insomniac, I guess.
Okay, but you know where you are.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
All right, good, good. Well, as long as you're feeling good and you know the rules and the lifelines and you're ready to play, we're going to play. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, then let's play. For $100, Chase, homeowners buy surge protectors to protect their possessions from unexpected surges of what? Electric current, water flow, air pressure, buyer's remorse.
I will say B, water flow. Final answer. Wait.
Oh, Chase, no, it was electric current. Oh. Trace. I'm so sorry. Oh, darn.
The look on his face is absolutely priceless. It's that look of how stupid can you be? And he thinks he's awake because the adrenaline's rushing. He's full of coffee, but he's not awake any more than a person is sober if they're really, really drunk and take a cold shower. What you have is a very wet, cold drunk. And doesn't make any sense. Okay, what evidence do we have? Here's PET scans of the awake brain, the slow-wave sleep brain, and the brain in REM sleep. The red dots are brain metabolism correlated with learning and problem solving. When's it all happening? A little bit while you're awake, nothing in deep sleep. It's all happening in REM. And when's the longest period of REM? Between the 7th and 8th hour. And when are you guys getting up? After 6 hours. So you're using half your brain. And here's my favorite slide on Psych 101. These are students that we paid to get 8 hours of sleep and gave them math problems to do while they were having fMRIs. And the brain is all lit up in the prefrontal cortex and the parietal lobe, and the students are getting the problems right. We do abstract math thinking with the prefrontal cortex, and most of our math processing is done back here in the parietal lobe. Give the same students after an all-nighter or after an average 6 hours sleep, and they getting the problems wrong. They don't even recognize them as the same problems they had the day before. Nothing's going on in the brain. The brain's totally silent. So when you say, well, I'm going to pull an all-nighter, or I'm going to go to bed at 2, 3 in the morning, I'm really going to stay up late, that's what's happening to your brain. It's worthless. It's just not, it's much better to go and get some sleep and then get up and do the rest of your learning. People who are asked to do Sudoku puzzles, if they sleep 8 hours, they're 3 times more successful than if they get less than 8. Latest research, this is very important, I think, for what's happening in our society. Elevated stress hormone levels resulting from your sleep deprivation causes your brain to stop producing new brain cells in the hippocampus. The hippocampus is that area where you need to assimilate information from short-term memory and move it up to long-term memory. If you're sleep deprived, you don't have enough nutrients, you don't have enough brain cells producing down there to really assimilate and move that material into long-term storage. So we talk about senility, we talk about Alzheimer's, people slowing down mentally. A lot of it, I think, is due to sleep deprivation and the lack of new brain cells in that region of the brain. Also, the quantity and quality of your sleep is so important before and after you learn something to increase your memory and performance. So don't try to study for finals on minimal sleep. And after you learn something, sleep on it, literally sleep on it for at least 8 hours, and then it's going to become part of you, not just for 8 o'clock the next morning during the final exam, but for the rest of your life. Brand new finding. Lack of sleep sends emotions off the deep end. What's happening when you're sleep deprived, your prefrontal lobes can't keep up with your emotional problems. So if you're made upset by something and you're sleep deprived, your body reacts in a very specific way. The prefrontal lobes aren't active, but what becomes very active is your amygdala. And the amygdala is the center for rage. So what happens when you have negative information coming in and you're sleep deprived, you are 60% more reactive. So people who fly off the handle, who are stressed out, who get very upset at things that otherwise their prefrontal cortex would have said, slow down, you can handle it, it's going to be all right. That's not operating. And what comes out is pure anger and rage. We've all experienced that. Number 2, establish a regular sleep-wake schedule so you synchronize the hours in bed with the sleepy phase of your biological clock. If you're up late at a party, don't say, well, I'll sleep in on Sunday until noon or on Saturday until noon to make it up. Because then if you try to go to bed that night, you haven't been up long enough if you try to go to bed before midnight, and you'll toss and turn and you won't fall asleep till 1:30 or 2 or 2:30. And the problem is, if you do that on the weekend, you come into work on Sunday or on Monday with the Sunday or Monday morning blahs. You'll have put yourself into eastbound jet lag without leaving home. Not a good idea. It takes about 4 weeks to get onto a good cycle. Here's two groups of students that are both asked for 3 weeks to sleep 8 hours a night. But group A, the red group, has a yo-yo schedule. They're told, I don't care when you get your 8 hours. You can go to bed at midnight, some nights 2 in the morning. Others, just get 8. This group was told to pick a bedtime and keep it constant for 3 weeks. Both these groups had the same amount of total sleep, but the group that was regular in their sleep-wake cycle was significantly more alert than the group that had the yo-yo schedule. Number 3, get continuous sleep. If you get up for more than 10 minutes to feed a baby or go to the bathroom or whatever, you have to make up for that cycle. It's as if you've lost 90 minutes or so. And what's this fragmented sleep often caused by? Any caffeine after 2 in the afternoon. If you need caffeine, don't take just a grande in the morning. Take 2 ounces every hour, and that will keep you alert enough without sugar flushes, adrenaline rushes, and then sugar flushes and lethargy. A lot of chocolate after 2 in the afternoon can ruin REM sleep, as does caffeine. Any smoking at all ruins REM sleep, and any liquor within 3 hours of bedtime. You say, wait a minute, Prof, I'll drink myself to oblivion. I'll go right to sleep. Well, you will, but you'll be up every 90 minutes thereafter. Exercise is very important for good sleep. It builds endorphin levels, mood elevators that reduces stress. The best time to exercise, executives always say, oh, it's 6:30 in the morning. I'm so busy. It's the only time I can exercise. That's the worst time to exercise because your body temperature is low and because fluid has been building between your disc all night long. And if you don't get up and stretch for at least an hour, you're going to eventually have lower back problems and maybe even herniate a disc. Number 4, make up for lost sleep. It doesn't dissipate into thin air over time any more than a charge on your credit card is going to disappear because you haven't spent any money in the last month. It's going to build until you pay it back. All of you have a sleep debt bank account and you're in arrears because every hour you're up builds your sleep debt. So let's say I sneak into your bedroom and I put a knapsack on your back and I put a brick in that knapsack. And after putting a brick in that knapsack for every hour you're up, at the end of 16 hours, you've got a heavy load. And you have to have 1 hour of sleep for every 2 hours you've been up the previous day. Otherwise, you wake up the next morning and your backpack's preloaded. So you can't do that because pretty soon you're going to get sick, you're going to crash, your mental state will not be very good at all. So if you're sleep deprived, start trying to go to bed 15 minutes earlier at a regular time and do it for a week. And if at the end of that week you're not fully alert all day long with no midday dip, add another 15. And for most students, you're going to have to add at least 1 more hour, and you're going to be in a state where you say, my gosh, I never knew what it was like to be awake before. As a stopgap measure, consider taking a restorative nap. We have a biphasic sleep pattern, a huge dip in alertness at night, a little bit of a dip in the day, which is exacerbated 8 hours after we get up if you're sleep deprived. Siestas used to take care of it, but even in Spain today, only 7% of the population takes a siesta. So about 40 years ago, I coined a term in response to business having power breakfasts and power lunches. I said, rather than coffee or Coke breaks, which is going to ruin your sleep that night, interfere with your REM sleep, why not take a 10 to 15-minute power nap? That's all you need to get you through the rest of the day. It's a stopgap measure. We'd much rather have you get good nocturnal sleep. 37% reduction in chances for a heart attack or a stroke if you nap at least 15 minutes during the day. You don't want to nap at your desk because you lose muscle tonus if you're really tired and you go into REM sleep. And bad things can happen. Okay, everybody should pay attention to some of the tips. Make sure your bedroom is quiet, dark, and cool, about 65 to 67 degrees, and not cluttered with a lot of clothes and reports and books all over the room. Give your pillow a pillow test by folding it in half. If it doesn't spring forward by itself, you have a dead pillow that's not holding your head, your neck, and your spinal cord in a perfectly straight line as if you were standing up. So if you have neck pain, Take a look at that. Could be one possible cause, or it will exacerbate a prior injury because your neck is not getting proper support. So the best pillows you can get are Insuloft down because they have high fill power. And most of you sleep on your side, so you should get a side sleeper which has 2 seams or is double gusseted. It doesn't come to a point, thereby not putting your head in a proper position. The bedroom should be used to only relax, limit TV, no computers in the bedroom. If you have clocks with LED dials, turn them around because that LED has enough strength to get under your eyelids and disturb your sleep. A hot bath, jacuzzi, easy stretching is a great way to raise your body temperature just before you get into bed so that when you get into bed it will plummet and it will get you down to delta sleep very, very quickly. If you have a type A personality, you're worried about tests and papers and appointments and schedules, have a little worry time before you turn off the lights. Just write down what you have to do tomorrow. You can't do it in the middle of the night anyway, or you shouldn't. So just write it down, put it on the nightstand, and you won't wake up in the middle of the night. Read non-work related material as a bedtime ritual. Get a favorite novel, a favorite book, just to put you to sleep. Do relaxation exercises. They're in Power Sleep as well as other books. Mental imagery is good. Lying on a beach, feeling really, really relaxed, bringing up those images. People who meditate during the day, 15 or 20 minutes, actually need less sleep at night because part of meditation is alpha wave relaxation. Also, if you play soft classical music as you're going to sleep, and you have a timer on that so it doesn't wake you up later in the night when your sleep becomes lighter, you can extend the depth of your sleep by as much as 35% as well as the length. If you toss and turn for more than 10 minutes, get out of bed, keep the lights low, do some light reading. You'll be sleepier sooner than if you had tossed and turned. As far as sleep aids, should you spend $199.95 in US dollars to get one of these gadgets that plays the sound of the forest or whatever? Look, just get the oldest FM radio you can get your hands on, put it between 2 stations, you got the same damn thing, and it's absolutely free. Let me just mention this product because so many of you are going to be doing extensive traveling throughout the world and getting jet lag, or you happen to be owls and not larks, and yet you have to get up to go to medical school, to go to hospital rounds, to go to class. You have to get up in the morning, but you can't get out of bed. You need to shift your clock a little bit. These new gadgets called light books have 50 LED lights with daylight spectrum lighting with no harmful ultraviolet. And the clue here is to expose yourself to that light for 15 to 20 minutes a day. If you can't get up in the morning, you can do that upon waking. Or if you take a long nap in the afternoon and you can't be groggy because you have to go take a test right after, or you have to play an athletic contest, you might want to get that daytime exposure a little bit later. Or if you want to extend your evening, if you're always falling asleep right after dinner, but you have work to do, that's the time to use it. And certainly it is the non-drug key to solving your jet lag problem. It's like taking actually like 2 shots of very caffeinated beverage without any of the side effects that that beverage is going to give you. You put it 2 feet away from you at a 45-degree angle. You don't stare at it any more than you stare at the sun, and it will shift your biological clock, because the basis of the biological clock is your temperature cycle, and that can be regulated through your hypothalamus by exposure on the retinal surface. That's what changes the day-night cycle. And it can be used in all sorts of events. Rebecca Robbins, an undergraduate who's working with me, and I had the privilege of going to train the Orlando Magic a couple of months ago. We were told that we could not really hold their attention for more than 7 minutes, because that's the team rule, because their attention span is just 7 minutes. And after that, if you're not saying something that will affect their contract and their performance, they're not interested. They're all multimillionaires. I was warned. I said, if you and Becky come down there, don't be embarrassed if everybody leaves after 7 minutes. Well, after an hour, they were still on the edge of their seats because they had never thought about this. They said, we're in top physical shape. We eat very well, but we never even thought about this. Well, Becky and I would love to take full credit, but we're smiling right now because the Orlando Magic is 13-3, which is the best record they've ever had in the history of the franchise. And everybody on that team has a light book, and they're using it. Okay, at the beginning of the hour, I said that I could improve your golf game, your tennis game, your athleticism by putting sleep spindles back into your body. What are sleep spindles? This is very important. Sleep spindles represent a cascade of calcium in your motor cortex. And what that cascade of calcium does is it binds reactions. So if you have to learn the 186 things that have to go in sequential order in a second and a half, from the time you pull your driver back on the first tee until the time you hit the ball, if you have to think of all the things you have to do with weight change, weight shift, and grips, and eye and head position, etc., you're never going to hit the ball squarely. So when an athlete says at the end of a great contest, "I was in the zone," what does she mean? What does he mean? It means that they had plenty of sleep, they worked on some routines, whether it's, three-pointers or whatever, and then they had at least 8 hours of sleep the night after they learned it. So they got their sleep spindles. And sleep spindles only occur typically between the 7th and 8th hour of the night. So these athletes who are sleeping 6 hours don't have a chance to improve because of this. The average overnight improvement in a motor skill after 8 hours of sleep is 20%, and it's not unusual to see 40%. So let me end by sharing with you my favorite case history of an athlete, daughter of two Cornellians that I taught 35 years ago. He was captain of the men's hockey team, and she was captain of the women's softball team. They met at Cornell. They got married after they graduated from Cornell. They had 5 kids, and one of them, they came to me and said, "Look, we have this 14-year-old daughter who's interested in figure skating. She's about to quit. She's not getting any better. She's frustrated. She has the best sports psychologist, the best figure skating coach in the world, but she's not getting any better. Would you talk to her?" And I met this charming 14-year-old girl, and I said, "What's your daily routine?" She said, "I go to the rink at 4:30 in the morning. I skate for 2 hours. I have breakfast. I go to school. I go to the rink at 4:30 in the afternoon for the second time, skate for 2 hours, have dinner, do some homework, and it starts all over again." How much sleep are you getting? 7 hours. Do you have a regular sleep-wake schedule? No, I'm a teenager. I like to have fun on the weekends. I stay up a little later. How do you stay awake in school? I drink gallons of coffee. You want to change? Yeah. I said, "Here, read Power of Sleep, follow all the exercises, keep sleep diary." And she said, "Okay, I will try it." And I said, "No more early morning exercise." And she started to cry. And I said, "Why are you crying?" And she goes, "Ah." So her parents translated for me. They said, what she's saying or trying to say is she will be the laughingstock of the entire skating club because they'll say, "You're not serious. All of us have to sacrifice. We all have to be here at 4:30 in the morning." I said, "Not this girl, not anybody, because you're not getting any sleep spindles. They'll never get better. They're inhibited." And her dad, John, said to me, "Well, Jim, this is kind of dangerous and she's going to be embarrassed." But I said, "Look, she's going to quit anyway." They said, "You're right, we'll try it for a month." Well, after a month, her dad calls me in the middle of the afternoon. He's a very prominent New York lawyer, and he said, "Jim, I don't know what's happening, but her coach just called me and said that she's doing jumps and spins and turns she never did before in her entire life. We're going to try this for another month or 2. I said, "John, your family, friends, help yourself, not charging you." He says, "Okay." 2 months led to 3, led to 4, led to 5. Now it's the end of spring vacation at Cornell, and her brother David, who was taking my visual communication seminar that semester, comes to me after spring vacation, and he brings me a picture that he took of his little sister lying in bed and reading Power of Sleep for the umpteenth time. I've seen the copy. Every single word is underlined. She's smiling. And David says to me, "Sarah wants you to have this video clip as well." And I said, "David, it'll be a second copy. Believe me, I already have that video clip." And it's of this beautiful young lady winning the gold medal at the Olympics.
Less than a minute to go. She's only allowed one more triple.
She really doesn't need it. I mean, what she's done so far is so spectacular. Putting the heat on the top 3 skaters. To have to skate to this level.
Final triple, the triple toe loop.
She screams out of joy.
This is the kind of performance you just dream about.
She had to dream about it to have it. She's so thrilled, she says to herself, "Oh my God." She said, "I was in the zone.
Sarah Hughes just brought the house down.
I never thought about anything. Sleep spindles."
Her talent was never in question, her genius never in doubt, but nobody, including Sarah herself, expected her to cleanly land 7 triple jumps, including 2 triple-triple combinations.
And look at these marks.
There's one happy young lady, and from time to time, when it fits in her own academic schedule, she comes up to Cornell, comes into Bailey Hall to Psych 101. She did it just a couple years ago, right after the Olympics, and she brought her gold medal, and she held that gold medal up, and she said, "No matter what your goal is in life, if you want to achieve one of these things, all you have to do is listen to Uncle Jim and get more sleep." So with that thought, I'm going to end the formal part of this by saying good night and sweet REMs. Let me do one thing to test this technology, and here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take 2 questions from 7,000 miles away and from here, just to test the system. Then, if you are in the Ithaca audience, I'm going to have the TAs who are here up in the front row here by the stage, and if you want your credit, all you have to do is come up with your student ID, write down, print your 7-digit number on the sheets we're going to have here, and print your name so we can read it clearly. So let's take the 2 questions. First from Bailey Hall. Anybody want to just ask a question? I'm having trouble seeing a hand. Okay, I have a hand over here. Yes.
If you wake up in the morning, like, say, like 10, 20 minutes before your alarm, is it worth it to just, like, wake up and start your day, or go back to sleep?
If you wake up 20 minutes before your alarm, is it worth it to get right up, or should you try to go back to sleep? You guys are so sleep deprived that I think you should try to go back to sleep. But if it doesn't happen in another 10 minutes, get up, get out of bed, and start your day. Okay, any other question? I think is there one over here? Yes. Okay, thank you so much. I touched on the best time to exercise, and I didn't elaborate on what it was other than to say don't do it first thing in the morning. I forgot that. I was going too fast. The best time to exercise is between 5 and 7 in the afternoon, not within 3 hours of bedtime if it's heavy exercise. Second best time is at noon. The very worst time is early in the morning. Okay, let's take 2 questions from Qatar. Who's got a question? You have to turn on your mic.
If someone suffers from sleep apnea and they can't have any sort of corrective procedure, how much extra sleep do they need?
How much extra sleep do they need if they suffer from sleep apnea? Well, they have to get as much sleep as they can, and they have to, for example, be encouraged to nap during the day if they are sleepy. And most of them are very sleepy during the day. You don't want them driving trucks and driving cars. So if they can get some sleep, fine. But the treatments for apnea are pretty good these days, mainly the CPAP machine, if they can adjust to it. The alternative, so says the British Journal of Medicine, is learn to play the Australian Aboriginal instrument, the didgeridoo. And if you play one of those 13-foot flutes 3 times a week for 20 minutes a day, the muscles that are collapsing in your throat that are blocking your airway get stronger, and it could help the apnea. It'll drive everybody else in the house nuts listening to you try to play this instrument. But in any case, that's one of the things. But with narcolepsy and apneics, if they have to do daytime napping to make up for the loss at night. But usually with apnea, if they fall asleep during the day, they're going to have the same problems. They're going to constantly be up. So we have to treat the apnea. One more question from Doha.
Thank you.
Is it more efficient to study in the morning or study in the afternoon?
Is it more efficient to study in the morning or study in the afternoon? It's most efficient to study all the time, if you can. But it depends on your biological clock. Usually people are most awake sometime around 10:30 or 11 in the morning till around noon, and then that midday dip starts to drop. So midday is usually good. Another good time is late in the afternoon and early in the evening before your cycle starts going down. But again, if you have to do a lot of studying and want to wake up in the morning, get out in the broad light and go take a walk or go jog for a little while, maybe around 9 in the morning, and that will be an alerting mechanism. Just even to take a walk in the park, or if it's dark and wintertime like it is in Ithaca right now, use daylight spectrum lighting like the light book. Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we're going to work on very hard next year is to extend the Pen Pal program. And somebody in Qatar suggested the other day that what we might very well do is have two-way conversations, just like we're having this morning as a test, with the Pen Pal group so that you can not only write people over here, but get to see them and get to talk to them. So Rebecca Robbins is going to head that program up, and we're going to work very hard on that. So this afternoon, thanks for coming. This morning, thanks for coming, and have a happy holiday season. Thank you. Thank you.